What's going on, you Tomb Raiders? Welcome back to Most Amazing Top 10. Here are the top 10 unsettling messages left behind on Tombstones, part 2. Yeah, even more spookiness. Let's do it. Number 10, cursed tablets. Exploring ancient ruins is fun until, you find a few cursed tablets. Those kill the mood for sure. Hate those. Back in 2020, around 30 lead tablets were found in Karamarikos, Greece. This was once Athens' main burial ground thousands of years ago, so this is a pretty sweet find. They found the tablets at the bottom of a 2,500-year-old well. But once they began translating the tablets, it makes a bit more sense why they found them in a well. They were cursed, definitely cursed. All of these tablets invoke the gods of the underworld. They implore the gods to cause harm to others. Yeah, imagine this is your first excursion and you find 30 cursed tablets. I'd be like, okay, well, guess I'm quitting. Guess this is my 2-week notice already. Dr. Jutta Storzek, director of the excavation, says they know that these tablets were to curse somebody, but whomever ordered the curse is still nameless. It's almost as if digging up ancient graves is a bad idea. I don't know, hence why we're on to part 2. Let's move on. Number 9, Jon Renie. This next one here, honestly, it's not a bad idea at all. Back in 1832, a Welsh house painter named Jon Renie passed away. His grave is quite unique. There's an inscription on his gravestone that's a grid, a big, massive, like a mathematical grid almost. It's 19 squares across and 15 high. In all of these spaces, there's letters that all make up the line, "Here lies Jon Renie." For years, citizens thought that it was interesting, just a bit of fun to be remembered by. And if that was the case, clearly it worked. Now, thousands of us are looking like, oh, Jon Renie, nice, cool idea. Others have a different idea. Some speculate Jon was trying to trick the devil in order to protect his soul after he passed. That's a bit different than a crossword puzzle, okay? I don't know, maybe the guy just liked Wordles. Why does it always have to be something so dark? Why is it always curses? Why is he always trying to juke out the devil? I'll do the same thing for my tombstone, but once you decode mine, it just says, smash that thumbs up. They're like, what? What does that mean? Number 8, remember death. Yes, can't forget about that. Death and Metaxas, can't forget. Turning the calendars back to 1794, a man named James Leeson was 38 at the time of his passing, which for the time is actually not bad at all. His grave is in New York and it's one of the most visited of all times. There aren't any crossword puzzles or anything like that, just a few symbols. So a little bit lighter. That's all there is on an otherwise standard headstone. There's an hourglass with wings, a flaming urn, and a stonecutter's tool, of course suggesting he was once a mason. There's one line at the top that was decoded a century later. In 1889, somebody figured this message out that appeared to be a Masonic cipher somehow connected to tic-tac-toe. Yeah, odd. The message decoded was, remember death. Yeah, we're not forgetting anytime soon, my guy. So now that we know this, those symbols become a bit more eerie. Hourglass with wings, that symbolizes time passing quickly. The flaming urn represents a soul's immortality. Lovely, lovely stuff. I'm just gonna have that cool S that we always used to draw in elementary school. Number 7, Paris Catacombs. Yes, of course we have to include some catacomb creepiness in a part 2. These catacombs date back to the late 1700s, okay? When the city's cemeteries were piling up. And I mean that in a literal sense. So officials began moving contents from all over the city. They moved them all around the city to these abandoned mines. The catacombs were then opened in 1809. What a fun family excursion that must have been. Awesome. Bring nose plugs for the fam. They designed the catacombs with the walls of skulls to ensure that visitors would meditate on death. Yeah, I'm sure everybody who visits thinks of nothing else. I'm pretty sure we nailed it there with the wall of skulls. That ought to do it. In order to ensure this was the vibe of the room, there's also a phrase carved above the entrance. It translates to, stop, this is the empire of the dead. Cool, say no more, you got it, I'm on my way. There's also another message right underneath and it says, stop, in the name of love. And you're like, oh, that's a bit nicer. No, I'm just kidding. The second one was a lie. Number 6, a strange warning. Okay, just because we've been talking about graves does not mean that these messages have to be written or drawn out. Sometimes it can be as simple as leaving animal bones on the ground. That's a message that ought to speak for itself, I'd say, no? You see that, I'm like, oh, see ya, on my way. This is your cave, no problem. I'll find the next one over. In St. Augustine, for example, the remains of a donkey were found buried underground. And judging from the skull, it had clearly been hunted down by humans. That's not the mysterious part. The mysterious part is that all of the bones were carefully separated, and there's no marks to suggest that any of these tools were used. So researchers believe this donkey wasn't even used for food. The limbs were placed to point north, and south. They used a donkey as a compass. How rude is that? Of all the ways to go out. What if you wanted to point east or west, you know? Give this guy a choice. What if he's not a fan of the north or south? Donkeys in that area of Florida in the 17th century, that's not bizarre by any means, but the way that the bones were buried, that's very odd. That's an odd message right there. Besides north and south, literally pointing, that is. We'll never know. Number 5, mythical carvings. Back in 2014, a 1700-year-old cemetery was discovered along the Silk Road, which are these ancient trade routes, ancient highways rather, connecting China and the Roman Empire. In the city of Kucha, which is now northwest China, this cemetery was found along with 10 ancient tombs, one of which was referred to as M3. M3 didn't have any haunting messages per se, but it did contain several carvings of mythical creatures. There's the white tiger of the west, the black turtle of the north, the vermilion bird of the south, so far so lovely, and then there's the azure dragon of the east. So a little scarier on the back 9 there. That dragon part was a bit jarring. These mythical carvings represent different seasons and the heavens, but what could the other 6 carvings mean? Perhaps depictions of hell? Who's to say? Number 4, the Ring of Secinianus. One ring to rule them all. And by rule, of course, I mean curse you and your entire family. This is why you don't steal from ancient tombs. Right here, listen up. This 12-gram gold ring, for starters, is massive. Its diameter is 25 millimeters, so unless you're wearing some sort of gauntlet, this ring is definitely gonna fall off your finger. Or you're Dave Bautista, then that would probably fit, I don't know. The ring had first been found in 1785. A farmer was plowing a field in Silchester Village, a village west of London known for its grim history. In 45 AD, ancient Romans invaded that same site, and come the 17th century, it was completely abandoned. The ring was mighty and even held an inscription, a Latin inscription, of course, and it read, Senequion vivas indium. What does that mean? Well, we'll come back to it. When 1929 rolled around, new details surfaced, or resurfaced rather. The data from the ring matched an excavation that was done in the early 1900s, less than 100 miles away. A place called Lydney, that's where this ring is from. At the same site, a tablet was found recalling the Celtic god of healing and hunting, and how his favorite ring got stolen. Yep, there it is. Someone's pissed. That's the god right now. He hears me talking about the ring and he's like, give it back. In case you're wondering why this rings a bell, Lord of the Rings was inspired by this legend. The tablet also says, may he who wears the name of Secinianus not have health until he brings the ring back to the Temple of Nodens. Yeah, let's get that ring back ASAP, please. I would be a lot quicker than Lord of the Rings. Where's this temple? I'm gonna put it in my Uber right now. Number 3, Robert Clay Allison. Sometimes you decipher a message on a tomb and it's peaceful, it's embracing the afterlife, especially ancient Egyptian tombs. The paintings you'll find, they're jaw-dropping. They're gorgeous. And then there's a tomb from the wild, wild west. It's not the same. It's not as much love in this tomb. For example, Robert Clay Allison. This man lived from 1840 to 1887. He was known as a rancher and of course, he loved to duel. On his tombstone, it reads, Robert Clay Allison. He never killed a man that did not need killing. That's so Western. That is the most Wild West tombstone ever. The first time I read it, I read that in Sam Elliott's voice. This guy, he loved to duel. I can't even do it, my voice can't go that deep. He loved to duel, I guess, I don't know. But he ended up dying from bad luck. Yeah, a wagon ended up rolling over his head in 1887 when he was 46 years old. What a way to go. The guy also didn't get a headstone for 90 years. And after 90 years, that's the best way they could sum up his entire life. Never killed a man who didn't need killing. Okay. Number 2, message from Egyptian afterlife. We're all curious about what happens after you die, but nobody celebrates the end of life like ancient Egyptians. Like I mentioned earlier, they would paint doors, leave valuables. Any new tomb we discover provides more hints as to what lies beyond. An ancient necropolis was discovered a few years ago in Egypt, and it contains dozens of coffins and a necklace that holds a message from the afterlife. This site is around 2,000 years old, and they're in the process of excavating it as we speak. But so far, the tombs and artifacts found belong to an ancient priestess. A message from the afterlife is pretty spectacular. Just, you know, don't let Rose from the Titanic near the necklace, or else she'll toss it overboard. That was everybody during Titanic. No. Why would she do that? And finally, number 1, Terracotta Army. We're covering all the tombs this week, so of course in a part 2, we have to finish with the Terracotta Army. This is a massive, massive haunting tomb. The tomb of Emperor Qin Shi Huang, China's first emperor. In this tomb, we can find 8,000 statues, but they all have unique carvings on their faces, as if to suggest these are custom statues. all 8,000 of them. The emperor believed that after he had passed on, he would still have to face the spirits of all of his enemies. So he wanted to be prepared even after death. However, the emperor decided to close the tomb forever before the workers even had a chance to get out. He was worried his enemies had found out, so there's now lots of statues and dark history in this one. The dark message here is that the emperor felt like he needed another army for whatever lies after death. That in itself is pretty haunting. Why did he believe that? Why was so much work gone into something for after the fact? Now I'm scared about death. That's great. Look what you guys have done to me. Well, now that I'm fearful of death and what comes after, I guess we'll talk next time. Those are the top 10 unsettling messages left behind on Tombstones Part 2. If you want a Part 3, I'm just gonna go out there and look myself and start reading, so let's do it. I've been your host, Taylor McWaters, and we'll see you next time on Most Amazing Top 10.